Last night was supposed to be a normal dinner with Carlos, my husband, and his college friends Alex and Becky. We were at this new restaurant downtown that Carlos had been dying to try for months. The place was packed with people celebrating something, IDK, some local sports win or whatever. The energy was high, drinks were flowing, and TBH, I was having a good time initially, despite feeling slightly out of place with his friends. We were all catching up, talking about random stuff. I was being pretty quiet, mostly just listening to their stories from the good old days, when they were in college together. I didn't go to school with them, so these convos always make me feel like the outsider. But whatever, I'm used to it. Alex asked how Carlos and I met. It was an innocent question, nothing weird about it. But the moment he asked, I noticed Carlos's whole demeanor change. He got this look on his face, kinda smug, kinda annoyed. I was about to answer when Carlos cut me off. She basically begged me to date her, he said with this dismissive eye roll. I froze with my wine glass halfway to my mouth. Everyone at the table got quiet for a second. I thought maybe he was joking, but then he continued. Look at her. He gestured toward me like I was some object being appraised. Desperate, average, and lucky I was bored enough to say yes. Alex and Becky laughed, but it was that uncomfortable laugh people do when they don't know how to react to something inappropriate. I didn't laugh. I couldn't even speak. My face felt hot, and I was gripping my glass so tight I thought it might break. But Carlos didn't stop there. The waiter had just brought our appetizers, and everyone was reaching for food, maybe trying to move past the awkward moment. Not Carlos, though. Honestly, he continued, taking a sip of his whiskey, I'm only still with her because I don't have time to train someone hotter. Alex looked at Carlos and said, Damn, bro, in this low voice that wasn't exactly challenging him, but at least acknowledged how fucked up the comment was. Becky was suddenly very interested in her phone, scrolling like her life depended on it. Nobody actually told him to stop. I sat there, completely humiliated, trying to process what was happening. Like, was this actually my husband saying these things? The same guy who just last week was telling me how much he loved me? Carlos? What the hell? I finally managed to say. He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like he was looking at something gross on the bottom of his shoe. Then he turned to Alex and Becky. See what I mean? So sensitive? Can't take a joke. He rolled his eyes again. This is what I deal with every single day. Alex cleared his throat. Maybe we should change the subject. But Carlos was on a roll now. He'd had 3 whiskeys before the food even arrived, and something about the audience seemed to fuel him. You know what's funny? He continued. When we first met, she acted all confident and independent. Then once we got married, boom! Clingy, needy, always asking where I am, who I'm texting. I stared at him, completely blindsided. Carlos, stop, I said. What? I'm just being honest. They're my friends. They deserve to know the real you. He turned back to them. She thinks I don't see how she checks my phone when I'm in the shower. I had never checked his phone. Not once. The accusation made me feel sick. Becky finally spoke up. Maybe we should order more drinks. Her attempt to defuse the situation fell flat as Carlos waved her off. No, I'm just getting to the good part, he insisted. You want to know why I really married her? No one answered. No one stopped him. He leaned in, looking directly at me now. Let's be real. No one else wants her. I'm doing her a favor. Something inside me snapped. 5 years of marriage, countless memories, all the love I thought we shared. It all collapsed in that moment. Without saying a word, I stood up. Carlos looked up at me with this smirk, like he was waiting to see what the desperate, average woman would do. I grabbed my full glass of Coke and just held it over his head for a second, enough for him to realize I wasn't kidding. Then I straight up dumped the whole thing on him. It went all over his hair, down his stupid face, and soaked his shirt. He just sat there looking shocked and pathetic. The shock on his face was almost worth the pain of his words. Almost. I grabbed my purse, turned around, and walked out without looking back. I could hear Alex saying holy shit as I left. First update. So yeah, I'm back. This is long and messy, and I'm not sorry. Some people will probably say I'm nuts for even writing this, but honestly, at this point, I don't care. I need to get this out and TBH. Some of you are the only ones I think might get it. I left off last night after Carlos basically tried to roast me alive in front of Alex and Becky at that new restaurant downtown, like it was a stand-up special and I was just the punchline. Still can't believe I actually poured my drink on him. It felt good in that split second, I'll admit. But then as soon as I walked out and hit the street, I started shaking, like I couldn't even get my keys out of my bag for a full minute. I just stood there staring at the traffic, feeling this weird mix of rage and shame, and also like I was about to start laughing. Not because it was funny, just because it was so insane. My hands were sticky from the Coke, and I kept thinking, is it really over? Did I just do that? Of course, my phone immediately started buzzing. First, it was just texts. Carlos, then Alex, then Carlos again. I ignored all of them. I walked the 2 blocks to the parking lot and got into our car. Yes, our car, which is technically in both our names, so don't even start. I wasn't stealing anything. I sat there in the dark, trying to decide if I should drive home or just sleep in the car like some kind of reality show reject. I went home in the end, because where else would I go at that hour? Honestly, I was hoping Carlos would be stupid enough to try to beat me home so I could lock him out, but apparently he stayed at the restaurant, probably soaking wet and making a scene, LOL. I got back to our place, tossed my shoes in the hall, and just stood there. Everything looked exactly the same, but it also felt totally different. His jacket was still on the hook, his shoes by the door, the dumb mug he uses for his morning coffee sitting on the counter with a crusty ring at the bottom. I thought about throwing it at the wall, but I didn't. Maybe because I knew I'd have to clean it up, or maybe because I wanted him to see it sitting there, like a giant middle finger. I washed my hands, changed out of my nice top, and put on old sweatpants. I left the front light on, just in case. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted him to know I wasn't hiding. Carlos didn't come home that night. I heard him buzz the door at like 1 in the morning, but I didn't let him in. My phone kept lighting up every 15 minutes. Calls, not just texts. And I could see his name getting angrier with each attempt. At 2, I finally blocked his number. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps, half wishing he would try to break in just so I could throw something at his head. But he didn't. In the end, I only got maybe 3 hours of sleep. When my alarm went off, I stared at the ceiling for a while, then got up and made coffee like a zombie. You know what's wild? I thought maybe he'd wake up and realize he'd been a total asshole and at least try to apologize or act embarrassed or something. Nope. The first thing I see when I check my phone, after unblocking him for like 2 seconds, yeah, I know, I'm pathetic, is a wall of texts that basically go, "You embarrassed me, you owe me an apology, you're blowing this out of proportion, Alex and Becky think you're crazy, you need to come fix this." I just stared at my phone like, is this really real? Is he actually doubling down? Not a single, "I'm sorry," not even close. He tried to guilt trip me about ruining his night and making him look bad in front of his friends. Like, dude, you did that all by yourself. I started typing out this massive response, but then I stopped. Why bother? He doesn't care. He just wants to win. That's what it's always been with Carlos, honestly. The need to win, to look like the smartest, coolest guy in the room, even if it means stepping on everyone else. I think that's what really hit me in the face last night, harder than anything he said. It's not just about me. It's about how he needs to feel above everyone, even if it means humiliating the person he's supposed to love. I don't even know if he believes half the stuff he says, or if he just likes the reaction. So anyway, I went into full autopilot, got dressed, left the apartment, went straight to my parents' place. Yeah, I know, I'm 32 and I should have my life together, but honestly, I needed backup. My mom opened the door and took one look at me and immediately went into mom mode, offering coffee, toast, a blanket, whatever. My dad was already up watching some morning news, and when I told them what happened, well, let's just say I've never seen my dad look like that. He just sat there, jaw clenched, fist tight on the armrest, and said nothing for a full minute. My mom kept asking if Carlos hit me or if I was hurt, and when I said no, she looked almost disappointed, like she wanted a clear reason to hate him outright. I told them everything, every word Carlos said, and my dad just got up and walked out of the room. I heard the garage door open like 5 minutes later, and his car pulling out, but I didn't even ask where he was going. I spent the morning at their place, sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, checking social media, pretending to read emails. I kept waiting for Carlos to show up, but he didn't. Instead, around noon, I got a string of texts from Becky. She never texts me unless it's some birthday dinner or group thing, so I was already suspicious before I even opened it. The first message is, "Hey, are you okay?" And then, "Alex says Carlos is freaking out." And then, "He's telling everyone you lost it and attacked him in public, but I know what really happened." I stared at that for like 5 straight minutes. Becky, the girl who sat there last night and scrolled Instagram while my husband ripped me to shreds, suddenly wants to play Switzerland? Sure, Jan. I texted back. Just, "Thanks, I'm fine." She immediately replied, "He's calling everyone. He's saying you were drunk, that you embarrassed yourself, that he tried to calm you down." I almost choked on my coffee. I wasn't even drinking alcohol. The audacity. I said, "I had a Coke. He had 3 whiskeys." She hit me back with, "Yeah, I know, but he's in damage control mode." I just put my phone down. I realized right then, if I didn't do something, this was going to turn into a whole crazy wife narrative, and everyone was going to believe him, because that's what Carlos does. He spins the story until everyone doubts themselves. So yeah, I decided to get ahead of it. I posted on my Instagram story just a picture of my empty wine glass with the caption, "Sometimes you realize you were the only sober person in the room." It was petty and stupid, but I needed to do something. Within 10 minutes, I had DMs from 3 of Carlos's friends and 1 from his cousin, all like, "What happened? And is everything okay?" I didn't answer any of them, but I screenshotted every message. Receipts, baby. Around 1, my dad came back. He walked into the kitchen, didn't even look at me, just started making a sandwich like nothing happened. My mom asked where he'd been, and he just shrugged and said, "Out." I didn't push it. 5 minutes later, there's a knock at the door, and who is it? Carlos. Looking like absolute shit, hair still sticky from the Coke, eyes wild, wearing yesterday's shirt. He didn't even bother to call or text, just showed up at my parents' house. My dad stood up so fast his chair scraped the tile. My mom put her hand on my arm and just whispered, "Don't move." Carlos came in, trying to act all wounded and victim-y, like he's the one who needs comfort. He started going off, loud, demanding, trying to force an apology out of me in front of my parents. He kept saying I humiliated him, that I made him look bad, that I crossed a line. My mom told him to lower his voice, but he kept ranting, waving his arms, and then he started getting close. Like, right up in my space, way too close for comfort. My dad stepped between us, just physically inserted himself, and told Carlos to back up. Carlos tried to push past him like he was entitled to just get in my face in my parents' kitchen. My dad shoved him back, not hard, but enough to make it clear he wasn't kidding. Carlos lost it. He started yelling, real yelling, like full volume, swearing at my dad, saying he had no right to interfere. At this point, my mom was shouting too, telling Carlos to leave, and I was just sitting there shaking, trying to decide if I should throw my coffee at him or my phone or what. Carlos tried to go around my dad, but my dad blocked him, and then Carlos actually grabbed my dad's arm, like he was going to move him out of the way. My dad shoved him back again, this time harder, and Carlos stumbled into the counter. He looked at me like I was supposed to come to his defense, and I just stared back. Carlos finally stormed out. My dad just stood there, breathing hard, and my mom started crying, which made me want to scream. I went upstairs and locked myself in the room, phone blowing up again, missed calls from Carlos, texts from Alex, all, "Dude, what happened? Call me. This is getting crazy." Even a message from Becky. "Did he really come to your parents' house?" Like, word travels fast. I just ignored everyone. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, listening to my parents argue downstairs, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Honestly, I thought about just running away, driving somewhere with no phone, no social, just disappearing for a while. But the more I thought about it, the more pissed off I got. Why should I be the one to run? I didn't do anything wrong. Carlos is the one who blew up his own life, not me. And if he thinks he can just spin this into some crazy wife attacks poor husband story, he's got another thing coming. So here's what I did. I started pulling up every group chat, every old text thread with his friends, his cousins, even his mom, who, for the record, has always kinda hated me, but I didn't care. I typed out one message. Nothing dramatic, nothing wild, just the facts. What Carlos said at dinner, word for word, how he acted, how he showed up at my parents' house and tried to fight my dad. I added, "If you want to know why I left, ask Carlos what he said about me last night." Sent it to everyone, and then I blocked Carlos again. I know this is just the start. He's going to hate me for it, but honestly, good. I want him to feel what it's like to have people look at him sideways, to have to explain himself, to lose control of the story for once. I want him to know he can't just steamroll everyone and walk away clean. If he's going to be a villain, fine. I'll be the villain's worst nightmare. See how that goes. So yeah, if you think this is over, you have no idea. I'm just getting started. Second update. So I guess this is the part where I say, I can't believe I'm back with another update. But honestly, I absolutely can. Because if there's one thing about Carlos, it's that he never knows when to quit. Like, the man has never met a dead horse he didn't want to beat into the ground, you know? Anyway, I didn't think things could get much messier after the last round. But then again, I guess I underestimated just how determined Carlos is to make himself the main character in literally every situation. I probably should have seen it coming, but I was still kind of hoping there was a button somewhere I could press to just mute my whole life for a few days. Yeah, right. So after the whole showdown at my parents' house, I basically moved into the guest room and lived in my pajamas for a solid 36 hours, surviving on coffee, leftover takeout, and my mom's weirdly aggressive attempts to get me to eat toast every 20 minutes. Every time my phone buzzed, I just stared at it, waiting for the next disaster. I kept thinking Carlos would get the hint and just go, but of course not. He started with the guilt trip texts, then the angry texts. Then he moved on to calling my mom, who, bless her, put him on speaker and left the phone on the counter so I could hear him ranting about how I was ruining his life and poisoning the family. He even tried to FaceTime my dad. My dad answered and just held the phone at arm's length so Carlos was yelling at the ceiling fan. That got old fast. I tried to keep my head down and just exist, but that's not really my style. After a day and a half of hiding, I got restless. I couldn't just sit there forever waiting for Carlos to make the next move, so I decided to go back to our apartment and get some of my stuff. I texted first, no answer. Called, straight to voicemail. I figured he was either ignoring me or had blocked me, so whatever. I grabbed my keys and my dad's car, because there was no way I was hauling boxes on the bus like some tragic movie character, and headed over. The drive was weirdly quiet, like the world was holding its breath. I kept picturing Carlos trashing the place, or maybe sitting there waiting to ambush me. But when I pulled up, it was just normal. Street full of cars, neighbors walking dogs, some kid dribbling a basketball. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment smelled like stale air and cheap cologne. Carlos wasn't there. His shoes were gone from the door, and so was his jacket. The mug was still on the counter, but there was a sticky note on it. Just a dumb little yellow square. right on the handle. All it said was, "You owe me." That's it. No signature. Like, who else would it even be from? I almost laughed, but then I saw that he'd also taken the TV and the PlayStation and left a pile of dirty laundry on the living room floor. Real mature. I started grabbing my things. Clothes, charger, that plant I've kept alive for 3 years against all odds. I took my laptop and a stack of mail, then stopped in the hallway to look at our wedding picture, the one we always argued about because he thought it made him look short. I left it face down on the shelf. I probably should have felt sad, or at least something, but mostly I was just exhausted. I filled 2 bags and was halfway out the door when I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Carlos, of course. He saw me and instantly puffed up, all red-faced and loud, like he'd been rehearsing this moment in his head all morning. He started in on me immediately, saying I was stealing, that everything in the apartment was half his, that I was acting crazy. He blocked the doorway so I couldn't leave. I told him to move, and he just stood there, arms crossed, staring me down. I could smell the whiskey on his breath, and it wasn't even noon. He kept ranting, saying I was embarrassing both of us, that I was making things worse for no reason. He said if I left now, he'd tell everyone I'd abandoned him and took his stuff. I just stared at him, trying to decide if I should throw my bag at his head or just scream. He wouldn't move, so I shoved past him, hard enough to make him stumble. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me back. I yanked free and told him if he touched me again, I'd call his mom. And yeah, maybe that sounds childish, but honestly, his mom is scarier than any cop, and we both know it. He let go, muttering under his breath, and stormed back into the apartment, slamming the door behind him. I got in the car and sat there for a while, hands shaking, before I could even start the engine. When I got back to my parents' house, my mom was in the yard hosing off the patio, like nothing in the world was wrong. I dumped my bags in the hallway and tried not to cry. My dad was inside watching some old game show rerun. He looked up, nodded, and went back to his crossword. I think that was his way of saying, "Glad you're back, but I'm not getting involved unless I have to." I went upstairs, plugged in my phone, and tried to breathe. That night, I got a call from Alex. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. He sounded nervous, like he was afraid I was going to scream at him. He said, "I just wanted to check in, see if you're okay. Carlos is saying some wild stuff right now." I asked what kind of wild stuff, and he hesitated, then said Carlos was telling people I was unhinged, that I attacked him at the apartment, that I'd tried to steal the TV. I laughed, actually laughed out loud, which I think freaked Alex out a little. He said Becky didn't believe him either, but some of Carlos's friends were starting to pick sides. Here's the thing, Carlos has always needed an audience. He's one of those people who can't stand not being the center of attention. If someone else is getting sympathy, he'll burn the whole place down just to get it back. I think part of the reason he lost his mind at dinner was because I was quiet, not playing along with his jokes, not giving him the supportive wife routine in front of his friends. He likes to be the funny one, the guy who tells it like it is, but only if everyone laughs. If they don't, he gets mean. I used to think it was insecurity, but now I think he just likes having control. That's why he's spinning so hard now. He can't stand that he doesn't control the narrative anymore. Anyway, the next few days were chaos. I stayed with my parents, checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for the next bomb to drop. Carlos went nuclear on social media, posting weird, vague stories about betrayal and being stabbed in the back. He posted a photo of his ruined shirt with some dramatic caption about violence in relationships. I ignored it. Becky texted me constantly, half gossiping, half trying to get me to spill more details. Alex sent me memes like he was trying to lighten the mood. My mom kept telling me to block everyone, but I didn't. I wanted to see what Carlos would do next. And then, just when I thought things might settle, Carlos decided to really escalate. Saturday afternoon, I got a call from his mom. She never calls me unless it's a birthday or Christmas, so I knew it was bad. She didn't even say hello, just started yelling, accusing me of destroying the family, saying Carlos was inconsolable, demanding to know what I'd done to him. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. She said I needed to come home and fix things. I hung up on her. A few hours later, Carlos showed up at my parents' house again. This time, he didn't bother knocking. He just walked right in like he owned the place. My dad was in the kitchen and Carlos went straight for him, shouting that he needed to talk to his wife. My dad told him to get out, and Carlos started shoving. My mom started screaming, and I came running down the stairs. Carlos was right in my dad's face, yelling, red as a tomato. My dad shoved him back, Carlos shoved him again, and then my dad punched him in the chest. Not hard, but enough to make a point. Carlos backed up, breathing heavy, and started shouting at me to come home and fix this. He said if I didn't, he'd make everyone see what kind of person you really are. My mom told him to get out, and when he wouldn't, she whipped out her phone and threatened to call the cops. That got his attention. He stormed out. After that, things got even weirder. Carlos started messaging all my friends, people I haven't talked to in years, even my cousin who lives out of state. He told them all I was unstable, that I'd lost it, that I was ruining his life. Some people believed him, some didn't. My group chats blew up. My aunt texted my mom asking if I was okay, which is hilarious because she hasn't spoken to me since Christmas 2 years ago. I just ignored it all. I spent a lot of time sitting in the backyard, scrolling through my phone, watching the neighbor's dog dig holes in their garden. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I started thinking, if Carlos wanted a war, I'd give him one. I wasn't going to just sit around and watch him torch my reputation, so I decided to hit him where it hurt. I went back to the apartment, with my dad this time just in case, and packed up everything that was mine. I took the good towels, the nice pillows, my favorite mugs, even the new kettle. I left him with the stained sheets and the weird mismatched plates he insisted on keeping. I boxed up all his stuff, every last hoodie, every sock, every stupid baseball cap, and delivered it to his mom's house. I rang the bell, dumped the boxes on her porch, and drove off before she could open the door. Carlos blew up my phone again. Calls, texts, even a voicemail. He said I was petty, that I was ruining everything, that I was trying to turn his family against him. I didn't answer. He started using a different number, texting me from some random prepaid, but I caught on quick and blocked that too. He tried messaging me on every social app, Snap, Messenger, even LinkedIn. I blocked him everywhere. The next week was a blur. I started looking for a new place, just something small, somewhere I could start over. My parents hovered, offering advice I didn't want and food I didn't need. My mom kept suggesting I go to therapy. My dad just grunted and changed the channel. Friends came and went, dropping off food, venting about their own drama, making awkward jokes about kicking Carlos to the curb. I appreciated it, I guess, but mostly I just wanted to be alone. Then, one night, I got a DM from Becky. She said Carlos was telling everyone I'd stolen from him, that I trashed the apartment, that I'd gone off the deep end. She said Alex didn't believe him, but a lot of people were starting to wonder. I just sent her a thumbs up emoji. I didn't have the energy to fight every single rumor, but then Becky said something that made me pause. She said Carlos was planning something. She didn't know what, but he was acting weird, more paranoid than usual, saying he was going to make sure everyone knows the truth. I asked if she knew what he meant, but she just said she was staying out of it. That's when I decided I had to go nuclear. If Carlos wanted to play dirty, I was going to finish this. I pulled up every text, every DM, every group chat where he'd said something nasty about me, about his family, about his friends. I screenshotted everything. Then I wrote out a message and sent it to the whole group, his friends, his cousins, even his mom. I laid it all out, what he said at dinner, what he said to my dad, what he'd texted me, all of it. I didn't embellish, I didn't add drama, I just told the truth. I said if anyone wanted proof, I had receipts. The fallout was immediate. Carlos's friends started messaging me, some apologizing, some demanding answers, some just lurking. His mom called my mom, screaming about family shame. Alex sent me a string of texts saying, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad." Becky said she was done with all of it. Even my own cousin got in on the action, texting me to ask if I was okay and if I needed anything. I just turned off my phone and went for a walk. When I got back, my dad was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking like he wanted to break something. He asked if I was done with all this, and I just shrugged. My mom hugged me, told me she was proud of me, which just made me want to cry. I went upstairs, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall. And that's where I'm at now. I don't know what Carlos is going to do next, but I know I'm ready for it. I'm not hiding, I'm not running, and I'm definitely not backing down. If he wants a fight, he's got one. And this time, I'm not pulling any punches. Honestly, I have no idea where this ends. And if he wants to keep making this messy, he's about to find out what messy really looks like. Let's see what he does next. Final update. Okay, here goes. If you've followed my 3-ring circus of a life for the last week or whatever, you know I was not about to just sit there and let Carlos burn everything down and walk away like nothing happened. This is the last update, mainly because for once I actually feel like I can breathe. Or at least, not constantly check over my shoulder for some new disaster. But yeah, you all want the messy details, so buckle up. This is what actually went down after I basically lit a match to my old life and watched the whole thing blow up. So after I sent out that group message with all the receipts, screenshots, his own words, even that bit where he tried to make my dad out as the villain, Ifar, like anyone who's ever met my dad, knows he's the most chill human on earth unless you mess with his kid. The fallout was immediate. It was like I'd dropped a bomb right in the middle of every group chat, family thread, even Facebook Messenger, which I haven't used since 2017, but apparently that's where all the aunts and uncles live now. The responses were all over the place. Some people wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. Some tried to both sides it, classic, and a few, 3 or 4, actually messaged me privately and said, "Okay, wow, I had no idea." Alex sent a string of IDK what to say, but I believe you texts, which was honestly more than I expected. Becky ghosted for a while, then came back around with some half-assed hope you're okay message. It is what it is. Carlos, though. Oh, Carlos, if you told me at the start of all this that he'd just get angrier, I would have believed you. But I did not expect the way he doubled down. He started texting from every number he could get his hands on. Honestly, I think he bought like 3 burner phones just to get around my blocks. He sent emails, DMs from random old accounts, even tried to get my cousin to pass me a handwritten note at my parents' house, which my cousin read out loud at dinner just to make a point and then tossed in the trash. The note wasn't even an apology. It was just more of the same. Blaming me, blaming my parents, blaming the system for turning everyone against him. If you're wondering why Carlos acts like this, honestly, I've spent way too long trying to figure it out. It's not just about me, it's about control. He hates looking weak, hates not getting the last word, and he's always been a little obsessed with what other people think, but instead of dealing with his own insecurities, he just lashes out and tries to make everyone else feel small. I wish I'd really seen it before, but I guess you don't know what people are like until you stop playing the role they want for you. The next few days were a blur of drama. My parents' house turned into Grand Central Station. People dropping by, calling, texting, everyone wanting the real story. My mom was half proud, half mortified. My dad just kept telling people to mind their own business. I crashed on the guest bed, eating leftover pizza and scrolling through Instagram stories like it was my job, trying to block out the background noise. It felt weirdly normal and totally upside down at the same time. Someone would send me a meme about messy breakups. Then 2 minutes later, I'd be getting a call from Carlos's mom demanding I fix things before it's too late. I started leaving my phone in the kitchen just so I could get 5 minutes of peace. At first, I thought maybe Carlos would just fizzle out, but then he started showing up everywhere. It was almost funny, except it wasn't. He'd lurk outside my parents' house, sitting in his car, texting me to come talk. Once he knocked on the door so hard I thought the glass would break. My dad answered that time, just opened the door and stood there, arms crossed blocking the entrance. Carlos tried to push past him, but my dad didn't budge. They had this weird standoff, just staring at each other. My mom started yelling from the kitchen, and I just watched it all from the stairs, clutching the banister like it was the only thing holding me up. Carlos finally left, peeling out of the driveway like some bad movie villain. And then, because of course, he started pulling other people in. First, his mom. She started calling my mom every day, sometimes twice. It got to the point where my mom just silenced her number and left the phone in a drawer. Then he started messaging old friends, trying to get them to talk to me, like maybe they could somehow convince me to be reasonable. One of his friends actually showed up at my parents' door, all nervous, carrying a bag of donuts like a peace offering. He stood in the hallway, shifting from foot to foot, and finally just blurted out, "He's not doing good, you know. Maybe you could just talk to him one last time." I just stared at him, then said, "He can talk to my lawyer." The guy left the donuts on the table and practically ran for his car. The divorce stuff started to get real at this point. I'd called someone my mom knew. Not gonna go into details, but not some fancy lawyer, just a normal person who's done this sort of thing before. It wasn't fast or dramatic or anything like you see on TV. It was just paperwork, emails, meetings, more paperwork. Carlos tried to stall at every single turn. He kept insisting we work it out privately, then would turn around and post another story on his socials about betrayal and loyalty. My mom started collecting screenshots just in case. My dad mostly avoided the whole thing, except when Carlos tried to show up at the apartment again. This time, my dad was waiting. He blocked the doorway, told Carlos to leave, and when Carlos tried to shove past him, my dad shoved him back, harder this time. Carlos yelled, tried to get in my face, but my dad just stared him down. Eventually, Carlos left, shouting over his shoulder about lawyers and the truth will come out. It was exhausting, honestly. Meanwhile, I was trying to get my own life together. I'd found a tiny apartment across town. I spent a week cleaning, painting, buying random stuff I never thought I'd need. My mom came over with a box of old dishes. My dad brought a toolkit and fixed the door that stuck. It was boring, mundane, exactly what I needed. I started sleeping better, eating normal food, even laughing at dumb TikToks again. But still, every time my phone buzzed, I got this little spike of anxiety, like, what now? It all came to a head one Saturday. My cousin was getting married, and because the universe has a sick sense of humor, both Carlos and I were invited. I debated not going, but my mom convinced me, said I shouldn't let him win by hiding out. So I went, wearing a dress I hadn't worn since before the pandemic, hair done, makeup on point. I showed up with my parents feeling awkward as hell, and immediately saw Carlos across the room. He was with his mom, both of them glaring. I tried to ignore them, just focused on catching up with my cousins, eating way too many appetizers, and avoiding the open bar. The ceremony was fine, but the drama started at the reception. Carlos kept circling, trying to get me alone. He cornered me by the bathrooms, started in with the same old speech, how I was ruining his life, how I was making a scene, how everyone was talking. I told him to leave me alone. He grabbed my arm. I jerked away and told him if he touched me again, I'd scream so loud the whole place would hear. He backed off, muttering under his breath. My mom saw the whole thing and came over, linking her arm through mine and steering me back to our table. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was pissed. Halfway through dinner, Carlos got up and made a scene. He started arguing with his mom, then started yelling at me from across the room. People stared, the music cut out, someone gasped. My dad stood up, walked over, and stood between us, just like he did at the house. Carlos kept yelling, calling me selfish and a liar, demanding I tell the truth. My aunt tried to calm him down, but he pushed her arm away. My cousin, the one getting married, looked furious. Finally, the groom, who is not a small guy, walked over and told Carlos to leave. Carlos refused, so the groom grabbed him by the arm and walked him out. The door slammed, and just like that, the noise came back and everyone went back to pretending nothing happened. I just sat there, staring at my plate, feeling equal parts embarrassed and relieved. My mom squeezed my hand. My dad just sat back down and started eating again. People whispered, but no one said anything to me. A few friends came over and gave me awkward hugs. The rest of the night went by in a blur. Dancing, cake, endless small talk. Carlos never came back. The next morning, my phone blew up again. Carlos had posted a long rant on his socials about being betrayed by family, about lies and jealousy, about people siding with the wrong person. He tagged me, my mom, even my cousin. My group chats went wild. Some people unfollowed him, some argued in the comments, some just sent me screenshots with crying, laughing emojis. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The whole world could see him for who he really was now. The legal stuff dragged on for weeks. There was fighting over stupid things. The couch, the blender, some old camping gear we never even used. Carlos tried to get me to pay for his moving costs, tried to keep the security deposit, tried to blame me for every little thing. I didn't give in. My parents helped where they could, but mostly I just kept my head down and got through it. Friends checked in, some stuck around, some faded away. My life got smaller, but also quieter. Now, finally, it's done. Paperwork signed, keys handed over, everything split down the middle. Carlos moved into a tiny place on the other side of town. He still posts weird stories sometimes. Cryptic quotes, sad music, the occasional selfie with some new friend who, TBH, always looks vaguely miserable. I don't interact. I don't care. My mom still asks if I'm okay. My dad just grunts and changes the channel. I go to work, hang out with friends, water my plant, binge reality shows, and try to remember what normal even feels like. If you're waiting for some huge epiphany or happy ending, sorry to disappoint. There isn't one. I don't have some new amazing boyfriend or a perfect life. I still get pissed when I think about Carlos, still get annoyed when people ask about the drama. But I'm not scared anymore. And I'm not sorry. If anything, I'm glad I didn't let him win. Because for the first time in a long time, I feel like the story is actually mine. So yeah, that's it. Carlos got what he wanted. A fight, an audience, a mess. But he lost the one thing he couldn't control. Me. And if he ever tries to pull this crap with someone else, well, good luck to them. I'm officially out. Thanks for reading. For real. If you're sitting there wondering if you should walk away from someone who treats you like garbage, let this be your sign. It's not easy. It's not pretty. But damn, it's worth it. I'm gonna go eat some leftover wedding cake now and watch dumb reality TV with my mom. If Carlos wants to keep shouting into the void, let him. I'm done listening.